We live in an age of endless information. Every day, we're bombarded with data, news, updates, and opinion. We scroll through feeds, listen to podcasts, read articles, and collect knowledge fragments like they're precious gems. The prevailing wisdom is the more facts you gather, the smarter you become, and the clearer your path will be. What if I told you that the more facts you collect, the less you actually understand? This isn't a contrarian take for the sake of it. This is an observation from years of watching brilliant people, myself included, get stuck. We accumulate data points as if they are armor, believing that if we just store enough, everything will eventually stick. I used to do this with business strategy. I would read every report, track every market shift, convinced that more information would eventually make the path clear. But I was just accumulating data without changing how I actually processed it. I thought the answer was more data. I thought if I just knew one more thing, the path would reveal itself. But more data just created more noise. This is a sophisticated form of procrastination. I was busy, but I wasn't moving. The breakthrough I didn't come from a new fact. It came from when I stopped looking for more information and started questioning the very way I was connecting the facts I already had. I had to let the old shape of my world break so that a more accurate one would take its place. Think about the Nigerian banking sector in the early 2000s. There were floods of information, new regulations, global market trends, technological advancements. Many bankers, brilliant minds were drowning in data. They had all the facts about international best practices, but they struggled to understand how these applied to the unique, often informal realities of the Nigerian market. They kept trying to fit square pegs into round holes. But those who understood the underlying structure of the Nigerian economy, think the informal network, the trust system, the cultural nuances, they didn't just collect facts. They patterned their understanding of how finance actually worked on the ground. They saw the something else emerging and not just the old system failing. In fact, understanding is what happens when the pieces you have finally fall into a different shape. Get this, it is not an increase in your capacity, but a change in your structure. If it doesn't move the needle on how you interpret the world when you wake up in the morning, it is just clutter. This is why intelligence actually can be a trap. So, research shows that people with higher cognitive ability are more susceptible to certain biases because they have the firepower to explain away contradicting evidence. Instead of using their intelligence to find the truth, they use it to protect their current mental comfort. They're not looking for the right answer. They are looking for the most brilliant way to be wrong. This is what's called the smart gap, where a high IQ actually provides more mental tools to construct elaborate justification for staying stuck. We use our reasoning power to justify frameworks that worked for us 5 or 10 years ago. We are brilliant at explaining why the world is wrong and our map is still right. We use our intellect to build walls around an outdated structure. I know this because I've been there. I remember sitting in meetings, seeing the numbers slide, seeing the culture fray, and instead of questioning my fundamental approach, I use my smart to find excuses. I blame the market, I blame the team, I use my intelligence to protect my ego rather than align with reality. I was using a 1000 horsepower engine to drive a car that was facing the wrong direction. But I say this now, growth usually requires you to be willing to abandon a way of thinking that once made you successful. And that is the hardest part for any high achiever. We are told to double down on what works, but what happens when what worked is exactly what is blinding you to what is coming? What happens when your greatest asset becomes your greatest liability? Consider the story of telecommunications in Africa. For decades, the information was clear. Landlines were the standard and infrastructure was expensive. Many experts, armed with all the data, predicted slow growth. But then came mobile. The understanding shifted from replicating the old system to a completely new architecture, which was decentralized, agile, and leapfrogging the traditional infrastructure. The companies and individuals who thrived weren't those who kept trying to build more landlines with better data. They were the ones who understood that the fundamental shape of communication had changed. They embraced the mobile first reality creating new business models, new distribution networks, and new ways of connecting people that old information simply couldn't predict. So, if you do not change the way you see, then all the information in the world is just more noise. You can have a library of data, but if your internal architecture is still stuck in the past, you will keep making the same mistakes with more sophisticated excuses. You will just become a more educated version of the same person who is currently failing. Transformation begins when your perception changes, not just when your data increases. It is a fundamental realignment. It is moving from a state of being busy with information to being still with understanding. It is the moment you stop fighting the facts and start working with them. So the brain is addicted to novelty, of course, but your results depend on alignment. If you are just decorating an old map with a new sticker, you aren't moving. You are just getting better at being lost. You are building a palace in a city that is currently burning down. I want you to think about the maps you are currently carrying. Think about the facts you have been collecting and ask yourself if you are actually moving forward, or if you are just decorating a room or an apartment that you should have moved out of a long time ago. Ask yourself if your intelligence is serving your evolution or if it is just a very expensive bodyguard for your comfort zone.